When a man spends time being single, something powerful begins to happen that most people often overlook. He starts to learn the true meaning of self reliance. At first, being alone can feel uncomfortable because society has conditioned us to think that happiness must always be tied to another person. But when a man embraces his singlehood, he begins to understand that he is capable of building his own life, controlling his own emotions, and creating his own happiness without needing constant external approval. This realization becomes the foundation of his strength. He no longer feels pressure to chase validation because he finds it within himself. He becomes content with his own company, and that kind of confidence is rare, magnetic, and deeply respected by others. Self reliance shapes his daily choices. A single man learns how to make decisions without the fear of disappointing someone else, and this freedom allows him to discover who he truly is. He can pursue his passions, sharpen his skills, and challenge himself to grow. Instead of depending on a partner to motivate him or to fill a void, he becomes his own source of drive and ambition. That independence makes him powerful because he realizes that whether someone enters or exits his life, he will always remain whole. And a man who knows he is whole is far less likely to accept less than what he deserves. Another important aspect of self reliance is emotional balance. Many men who rush into relationships often struggle with insecurity or fear of abandonment. But a man who has spent time alone learns to handle his emotions in healthier ways. He learns how to face struggles, disappointments, and setbacks without collapsing under pressure. That emotional maturity not only makes him stronger, but also makes him more attractive because women naturally gravitate toward men who are stable and self assured. His independence signals to others that he is not desperate, not needy, but rather selective. And that quality alone changes the way he is perceived. The longer a man remains single, the more he develops resilience. He learns how to manage life on his own terms, whether that means handling finances, building discipline in his health, or making progress in his career. These are all areas where self reliance pays off because he does not wait for someone else to push him, he learns to push himself. That kind of mindset builds a foundation of success that no one can take away from him. And when the time eventually comes for him to enter a relationship, he does so from a place of strength and contribution rather than neediness and dependence. But perhaps the most empowering part of self reliance is the confidence it brings. When a man knows he doesn't need anyone to survive or to feel complete, he walks differently, he speaks differently, and he carries an energy that others can sense immediately. Women in particular notice it because confidence is one of the most attractive qualities a man can possess. Self reliance transforms him into a man of value, someone who is not afraid to stand alone, and ironically, that makes him the kind of man others want to stand beside. That is why the longer a man is single, the more he learns the priceless lesson of self reliance. And this lesson becomes the foundation for everything else he will build in life. When a man spends a longer period of time being single, something interesting happens. He naturally becomes more focused on his personal growth. Without the distractions, compromises, or emotional ups and downs that often come with relationships, he has the space and freedom to turn inward and invest in himself. This is the stage where a man starts to figure out what truly matters to him, what he stands for, and what kind of life he wants to build. Instead of trying to constantly impress someone else or live up to another person's expectations, he begins to set his own standards. This shift in perspective is incredibly powerful because it allows him to design his life from a place of clarity and vision rather than external pressure. During this time of singlehood, he may start exploring new passions or developing new skills. A man who once ignored his dreams because he was too busy chasing relationships now has the freedom to chase his ambitions with full energy. He might focus on his career, building his body through fitness, learning new hobbies, or even traveling to experience life in a deeper way. Every step of progress he makes adds to his sense of accomplishment, and that builds confidence. A man who is growing, who is constantly improving himself, carries an energy that others notice. He doesn't need to tell people that he's leveling up. They can see it in the way he speaks, in the way he carries himself, and in the results he achieves. Personal growth also extends to his mindset. The longer a man is single, the more opportunities he has to reflect on past mistakes, failed relationships, and patterns that didn't serve him. Instead of rushing into the next relationship, he gains wisdom by analyzing what went wrong and how he can become better. He learns to take accountability rather than blame others, and that level of responsibility matures him. He starts to let go of toxic habits, negative thinking, and self sabotage. He develops discipline and mental toughness, knowing that growth is not always easy, but it's always worth it. This transformation from within is what separates an average man from a man who becomes extraordinary. Another aspect of personal growth is the way it improves his self respect. When a man dedicates himself to progress, he no longer tolerates things that drain his energy or pull him away from his goals. He becomes more selective with the people he allows into his circle, and that includes women. Instead of chasing every opportunity for validation, he starts to value his time, his peace, and his mission in life. And when he finally decides to pursue a relationship, he does so from a position of strength, bringing value to the table rather than expecting someone else to complete him. Growth also shapes the way women see him. A man who is constantly improving is never stagnant, and that is highly attractive. Women are naturally drawn to men who have ambition, direction, and the discipline to make their vision a reality. They sense that such a man is rare, and rarity creates desire. So, ironically, the longer a man is single and focused on growth, the more magnetic he becomes without even trying. He doesn't have to beg for attention. His progress demands respect and admiration. That is why the longer a man is single, the more he develops his personal growth. And this growth becomes the key that opens doors to greater opportunities in life and in love. When a man spends a long time being single, one of the most profound changes he experiences is the sharpening of his independence. Independence is not just about being able to cook your own meals, pay your bills, or manage your household. It goes much deeper than that. It is about cultivating a mindset where you are fully comfortable with yourself, where your happiness no longer depends on someone else's presence or approval. This independence becomes one of the most attractive and powerful qualities a man can possess because it shows the world that he is not needy, desperate, or reliant on others for his sense of worth. When you're single for a longer period, you begin to realize how strong and capable you truly are. You learn to make decisions on your own, you learn to trust your judgment, and you start to stand firmly on your feet. In a relationship, it's common for people to rely on each other so much that they sometimes forget how to function alone. But being single gives you the chance to take full ownership of your life. You're the one who decides what your day looks like, where your energy goes, and how you want to grow. That control builds resilience, confidence, and mental toughness. And all these qualities make you unshakable. This independence also gives you the freedom to walk away from situations that don't serve you. A man who hasn't developed independence might cling to unhealthy relationships out of fear of being alone, but a man who has lived through long stretches of singlehood has no such fear. He knows how to enjoy his own company, so he doesn't settle for toxic behaviors, disrespect, or mediocrity. Instead, he chooses relationships from a place of strength, not desperation. Women sense this immediately. They notice the difference between a man who needs them to feel whole and a man who is already whole by himself. The latter is the man they respect, admire, and chase. Independence also refines the way you carry yourself in social interactions. Because you don't need anyone to validate you, you naturally radiate calmness and self assurance. You don't try too hard, you don't chase approval, and you don't bend over backward to impress. This makes your presence magnetic. People, especially women, are drawn to men who are self sufficient because they know such men are rare. A man who can stand alone is far more valuable than a man who constantly depends on others to prop him up. Moreover, independence teaches you how to truly love without attachment. When you're secure in yourself, you don't cling to a woman because you're afraid of losing her. Instead, you give her freedom, space, and respect. That kind of love is powerful because it doesn't suffocate, it empowers. Women find themselves more deeply attracted to men who don't hold on tightly out of fear, but instead allow the relationship to grow naturally. This is only possible when a man has already mastered the art of being independent and content with himself. So when a man is single for a long time, he learns how to stand tall on his own, how to love his life without depending on anyone else, and how to offer value to a partner rather than needing constant validation. That level of independence becomes a cornerstone of his strength, his confidence, and ultimately his ability to attract women without even trying. Another powerful outcome of being single for a long time is that a man develops a deep understanding of what he truly wants and, more importantly, what he absolutely will not tolerate. Too often, people rush into relationships out of loneliness, social pressure, or the fear of being alone. And in doing so, they compromise on their values and desires. But when a man has spent significant time on his own, he gains clarity. He has had the space to reflect, to learn from past experiences, and to observe what works and what doesn't. This clarity becomes a compass, guiding him toward healthier choices in both life and relationships. When you have been single for an extended period, you no longer look at women through the lens of desperation. Instead, you evaluate carefully. Is this woman adding peace to your life, or is she bringing drama? Is she aligned with your vision and values, or is she pulling you away from your purpose? Is she someone who respects and admires you? Or is she someone who drains your energy with games and negativity? These are questions a man learns to ask when he has had the patience to remain single and grow into himself rather than rushing into empty connections. This refined clarity saves him from unnecessary heartbreaks and wasted years. This clarity also manifests in how you carry yourself. When you know what you want, you don't waste time chasing every opportunity or trying to please everyone. You are selective, intentional, and deliberate. Women notice this immediately because it is different from how most men behave. The majority of men, when they meet a beautiful woman, get lost in her charm and forget their own standards. But a man who has clarity does not fall so easily. He observes, he evaluates, and he decides whether she even qualifies for his time and attention. That level of discernment is rare, and it makes him stand out. The longer you stay single and focused on yourself, the more you refine your standards in every area of life. You no longer settle for unhealthy friendships, toxic environments, or meaningless relationships. You realize your time is the most valuable asset you have, and you protect it fiercely. And when a woman senses that you value yourself this highly, she respects you more. She knows she cannot play games, she knows she cannot walk all over you, and she knows she must bring her best self to even have a chance of being with you. This is how clarity transforms into power. Another important piece is that this clarity allows you to stay aligned with your mission in life. Too many men lose themselves when they get into a relationship. They compromise their dreams, their goals, and their identity just to make someone else happy. But when you've lived single long enough to know who you are and what you want, you refuse to compromise your mission. You build your life in a way that any woman who comes in has to fit into your vision, not derail it. That makes you unshakable, and women are instinctively drawn to men who live with such focus. So the longer a man is single, the clearer his standards become, the stronger his boundaries are, and the more intentional he is about who he allows into his world. This clarity is not born from bitterness or arrogance, but from experience and self awareness. And when he finally chooses to let a woman in, it is not out of need, but out of genuine desire, making the relationship healthier, stronger, and far more meaningful. One of the greatest advantages of being single for a longer period is the strength of independence that develops within a man. Independence is not just about being able to pay your bills or cook your own meals. It's about creating a life where you are whole, complete, and fulfilled on your own terms. Too many men fall into the trap of believing that happiness comes from being with a woman. But the truth is, when you are comfortable and confident in your independence, you become far more attractive and desirable than any man who is desperate for validation or companionship. Independence teaches you resilience. When you spend time on your own, you learn how to handle challenges without leaning on anyone else to solve them for you. You figure out how to manage your finances, balance your emotions, and face life head on. This self sufficiency builds an aura of strength that women instantly recognize. A man who is independent doesn't project neediness, he doesn't cling, he doesn't beg for attention, and he doesn't crumble when things get tough. Instead, he projects calmness, stability, and control, and that makes him incredibly magnetic. Another benefit of independence is freedom of choice. When you are not tied down by a constant need for validation, you are free to live life exactly the way you want. You can travel, explore new opportunities, pursue passions, and grow without worrying about whether someone else approves. This freedom shapes your mindset in a way that creates excitement around you. Women are naturally curious about men who live life fully, men who are unapologetic in pursuing their dreams, and men who don't revolve their entire existence around impressing others. Independence makes you mysterious, and mystery is one of the strongest forces of attraction. The longer a man remains independent, the less he tolerates unhealthy attachment. He doesn't chase a woman just because she's beautiful, and he doesn't sacrifice his dignity for attention. Instead, he views relationships as an addition to his already fulfilling life, not as the center of it. It's a powerful shift because women can sense when a man doesn't need them to survive. That energy of I am complete on my own is far more compelling than I need you to make me happy. It creates respect, and it makes her want to earn her place in your life rather than take it for granted. Independence also shapes leadership. A man who leads himself well, who can make decisions, solve problems, and create structure in his own life, naturally becomes a man women trust and admire. Leadership doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from demonstrating control over yourself. A man who is independent does not wait for someone else to direct his path. He is decisive, confident, and firm, and this is exactly the kind of energy that draws women back to him even if they initially walked away. They realize that he is not like most men. He's not shaken by rejection, and he is not dependent on anyone else for his identity. In the end, independence is the foundation of true strength and attraction. It allows a man to live fully, to be free, and to attract relationships from a place of abundance instead of lack. And when a man has built this kind of independence, women can sense it deeply, and many of them will always find themselves drawn back to him, no matter how far they may have drifted.